الآن يمكنكم المشاركة في مبادرة الأيام الرقمية تحت شعار انطلق بقوة مع جوجل، والتي يتناول فيها خبراء جوجل عناوين جديدة أسبوعيا مثل السحابيات، مهارات من جوجل، أندرويد، فلتر، ذكاء الآلة، فايربيس، ديزاين ثينكينج، مقسمة إلى دورات وورشات عمل يومية بالإضافة إلى مسابقات أسبوعية. شاهد الأيام الرقمية مباشرة على اليوتيوب وشارك رأيك وأسئلتك مع خبراء جوجل، واحصل على شهادة حضور في كل محاضرة تشترك فيها. هذا وأكثر من الأحد إلى الخميس ابتداء من الساعة 9 بتوقيت دبي عبر الرابط المبين youtube.com/GDG MENA.
Yeah, we should. So we are starting, everybody, and we're going to jump straight into an activity. I'm not even going to introduce myself because I want everybody, even the folks on the live stream as well, to participate. So we are going to do a mini design thinking workshop right here, right now. And the idea here, and let me just quickly move to the screen so people on the live stream can see my face. Is that me or somebody else? No, it's somebody. There I am. Hello, everybody. Live streamers, hello. I just wanted to introduce myself because you hear a phantom voice and you see a presentation. So yeah, let's start. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes. And if you have a pen and paper, grab it. If you've got Notepad and a laptop open, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to come up with as many different product ideas that you can come with a paperclip. How many different product ideas can you come up with? And I'm going to start my clock right now. 3 minutes. That's everybody on the live stream as well. So when you finished, no going online and checking this, because I know people can go online and quickly Google this activity. So the clock's already started. You already got 10 minutes. 10 minutes have already gone. So the folks on the live stream, you do the same activity, and I want you to post in the chat the number that you come up with, the number of ideas that you come up with. And I'm going to quiz you as well and ask you which ideas have you come up with. So for example, I'll give you one for free. You can make a pair of earrings from a paperclip. But what else can you do with a paperclip? Let's get thinking. Let's get thinking. It's not as easy as it seems. And this is really tapping into a different part of the brain, which is from the analytical and the processing part, and tapping into that the creative part of the brain. So let's go. Think about it. What different kind of uses do you have for a paperclip? This is like borderline a question that you might even get on a Google interview, by the way. Borderline. Oh, is that the camera? Oh, cool. Yeah. Right. Oh, 5 seconds. Okay, no worries. Okay. We've got Nabil doing the camera work from the laptop, which is cool. So we are down to, what's that? We've had 1.5 minutes. Yeah, you got 90 seconds left. And I know I'm being tough on you with 3 minutes, but this is a typical activity that we might do to get people started, get the brain activity going for an activity. I don't want to see any people giving up. I want to hear numbers, number of ideas. What if I said there's a prize? This is what I like, adding the prize at the end, because then people are like, oh, I wish I'd. And the people on the live stream, unfortunately, I have a prize for the person who has the largest number of ideas. See, this is the thing about incentives. When you don't have an incentive, people are like, I don't care. But when you add an incentive, it changes the game significantly. We are down to the last 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we are done. Right. Shout out some of the ideas that you came up with. Actually, let's start with numbers first. Because 4, 5, 4, 5, 3. We have really technical people in the room now. We need like product managers. We need people. I can see more. 4. Any more than 4 on the live stream? Maybe I'll get Nabil to check. Who had 5? 5. Right. Let's hear your 5. Attack weapon. I love it. Yeah. Don't put it in your pocket when you're going through the airport security, please. Next. Yes, lockpicker. That's a very common one. Yes, next. Toothpick. Yep. Might need to do a dentist visit after that, but anyway. Yeah, SIM card holder opener. Amazing. As a group, maybe we have more than 5, but next. A ring. Yep. And a hook for fishing or something. Yeah, we might, maybe fishing is not so. Sure. Share a hanging plant, exactly. Any others different from that anybody up came with? Art. Yep. 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 Keychain. Yep. Any others? Yep. Yep. Christmas decoration. What about holding paper together? Which is the classic, like the slam dunk, the easy one. We're going to check online to see, but the 5 is good. I think you win the prize. Just some data points here. So the average is normally 9. The most is 32 I've had where someone has come up with 32 ideas in 3 minutes. Exactly. And again, these are folks who varying in background and jobs that they've done. And I find technical people are programmed to think in like one way. Some of the things that you brought up were very creative in terms of like the tire pressure one is super. But so your future career path could move into other areas. Again, this isn't a science as such, but it's useful. It's a useful mechanism to understand the way people think, and that's exactly the kind of thing people are looking for now. If you go for an interview, it isn't just about your list of credentials. It isn't about where you worked before, but it's about your sort of method of thinking that people want to try to talk about. And I've got some data points on that as well. So you win the prize. So let's give that to you. Well done on the 5. Live streamers, let's wait to hear what you're going to come up with. Are you okay to help? No, we're done. We're done now. Yep. So let's press on. This is where I now introduce myself. So hello, everybody. So Nasser Ahmed, right? It hasn't. You said it takes a few seconds to come on. Yeah. So Nasser Ahmed, currently working in learning services at Google. Have been at Google for about 11 and a half years, all of which, majority of that time has been in Dubai. So I've literally watched the office get set up from nothing in DIC to where it is today. I also was around for the opening of Internet City, where we got to go back to Sheikh Mohammed's palace and have dinner on his lawn, which was amazing. This was 1999, if I remember correctly. So superb affinity with the region, and probably I'll end up staying here for the rest of my life, maybe. Let's see. As I said, a lot of experience working in terms of education, learning services. My background is a little bit more varied because I have worked in Europe, so worked in the UK predominantly. Previously worked at a company called IBM, who you're probably familiar with, but moved from IBM in fact, 2008 to the UAE. In fact, that's where my UAE adventure started, and then joined Google from IBM. So I always like to joke that if you cut me, it starts to bleed blue first because of that IBM blue blood, and then it turns green, and then it turns red, and then it turns yellow because of now my googliness, if you want to call it that. My first adventure in Dubai was actually helping to start bait.com. So if you've ever searched for a job, that backend and that some of the design of the backend services was done by myself as one of the technical projects I initially did. I'm super technical, so computer science background, and initially started as a sales engineer at Google and sort of moved around a little bit and ended up in a place which I'm most passionate about in terms of trying to get communities, trying to get individuals like yourselves really not just excited, but I think even trying to fine tune some of your career aspirations and trying to map some kind of a journey, because for most people, it's a very non-linear journey. Like you start somewhere and you think, okay, if something comes, I'll take it, I'll jump, I'll move. But I believe that you need to have at least some kind of a blueprint. As we said at the start, given some of the skills that you start to uncover about yourself, you can start to map a slightly different journey beyond coding, because there'll be a time when you'll think, okay, I kind of don't want to do coding anymore. I want to do something maybe which is either a product manager, a program manager, a technical lead, an architect, someone who's overseeing coders, which is a slightly different job, but will tap into your technical skills, because that's that part that if I lose from my day-to-day job, I probably would, lose excitement, lose motivation, etc. So a couple of other things. So recently also not recently, but 2016 to 18, I completed an MBA at Cambridge University. So to supplement those technical skills, I wanted to, expand my business and my sort of broader skills that I knew that I could develop. And again, as we were saying about on top of your technical acumen, what else do you need to perform a particular job? This was super useful because it was an executive MBA as well. So done over 2 years, and very useful to then understand the business side and the business elements of things. So I always recommend people to start, again, thinking about from academia, what kind of things could you extend your current career with over and above what you already have, because it's useful, again, to start planning ahead. These things cost money, and you need to, need to make allowances for that. So that's enough about me. Let's press on. I'm going to use my screen. So I've got 3 certs, which are on the screen, and I don't know if you know how many Nabil has. He doesn't tell everybody how many he has, but he has, I think, all 10 now. He has all 10 Google Cloud certifications, which I don't know how much time he has in the day, but I'm pretty sure he drinks and lives and breathes everything Google Cloud, which means he's the epitome of, someone who you could take into a client meeting or as a trainer. He's we've been working together on a couple of projects, and he's a wealth of experience. So highly encourage you to look at these certs. The newest one is this Cloud Digital Leader, less technical, more business transformation focused. This is going to get you a ticket or an opportunity to work at companies who are currently investigating cloud and Google. So I really highly encourage you to look at this cert, because it's, again, not as technical, but will open the doors for you in terms of CV. Someone will search for this certificate, looking for people with this particular skill. And in the region, I'm not sure how many, but we only have a few hundred people who have the cert. In the region. So, and we're talking GCC. So this is highly regarded, and something I would definitely encourage you to look into for sure. How many certs do people already have in the room, or people are looking towards getting a cert for Google Cloud? Anyone got anything? Which one? The architect? Associate? Yeah. So, I mean, I need to look at people's LinkedIn profiles as well. So one of the other things I've been doing is some career coaching. And I had a session with a guy who hadn't really beefed up his online profile. Again, LinkedIn, there's Glassdoor, there's quite a few different platforms out there, but I'd encourage you to keep that really nicely polished, because while you're asleep, someone might find you and say, this is the perfect person for my role, my job, my activity. People get lazy. I found now, working from home and lockdown and COVID, people are a bit lazy and reluctant to keep that nice and shiny and polished, because you want to put yourself out there and give yourself an opportunity to be found by someone, instead of having to blast your CV to the sort of old way of doing things. There are teams of people in companies who are looking for people like yourself, with your skills, with your your background. And if you don't have it, if you don't have that that profile ready for someone to look at, you're sort of missing out, in my opinion. There's other certs as well that it's funny. I wish we could present and not have to wait for because I have to click and then wait for the delay, which is fine. There's other certs. I'll jump back here quickly. There's other certs available there as well. I think it's 10 in total. You have all 10, don't you? 11. The machine learning one, which is new. So he's got 11. So I said 10. He didn't even correct me earlier to say he has the 11th as well. So yeah. So there's other certs there. You can do most things remotely now, and there's great resources out there to get you up to speed with this. A little bit on the background to where things are moving in terms of 2022, because I think this is what you need to be looking at. I always find people don't necessarily keep their finger on the pulse with regard to what is the market requiring of individuals today and tomorrow and into 2022 and into 2025. This is the World Economic Forum. This isn't Google, so this is highly independent source of information. They go through and look at which emerging roles are changing and which are the declining roles. This is fascinating. The roles which are no longer people are hiring for: data entry clerks, accounting, administrative, executive secretaries. There's probably another reason for that, because people aren't in offices anymore, or offices less. But I find even looking at this declining list, is super interesting, because you can see if you're targeting a job in that declining list, good luck. The next 3 to 5 years is going to be super difficult for you. Focusing on that top list, it doesn't take a person with a PhD to figure out some of these, the top 2 topics there. There's a reason why those are the top 2, because a lot of companies are struggling with data. They're struggling with AI, machine learning, and its application, because I find it's a little bit of a buzzword. It's a bit too vague. When people say we're doing machine learning and AI, it needs to have more teeth, and it needs to have a bit more of a grounding. Why are you using it? Is it for fraud detection? Is it some kind of, the biggest one at the moment is moderation. Online moderation is a massive challenge. If you look at Meta, if you look at Twitter, if you look at Instagram, image level moderation, because at the moment it's very difficult to understand what's real, what's fake, and the rest of it. And a lot of tools are now being developed to automate all of that. And that's the reason why you're seeing some of these things quite high up. General and operations managers. People aren't managing hardware anymore. They're actually managing fleets of machines and managing an operation. So that's the other part. Containers means that you don't necessarily manage an individual piece of hardware, but it's a collection of appliances, of software-defined networks, of software-defined machines, or scripted architectures. So if you're using Puppet or any of these other services, most people can spin up their entire architecture in a few lines of code. So the operations side of things. I'm not going to go through everything here. I'm going to pick off a couple of things here. The big data stuff, yes, interesting, but we're finding a lot more that it's more about, it doesn't matter how big it is. It's actually just about the analytical capabilities that we're interested in understanding. However, if it's zettabyte scale, not even at that petabyte scale that we're talking about. Any other things here? No. We'll talk more about that in a second. The other thing that I wanted to also list are those. The reason why I started the workshop with that exercise was just to get you thinking, not just about those technical skills that people need, but also about the analytical thinking that's required to make to make things different. Again, World Economic Forum again, the top skills moving into 2025. Top one is that analytical thinking and innovation. If I throw you that paperclip in an interview and say, come up with as many ideas that you can come up with, you've got a bit of an idea of how to tackle that. But this is no different to if we were sitting in a room thinking about, if we're in Etisalat's headquarters now, and they're planning what kind of prepaid options should we be developing for 2022? What is going to make us differentiate ourselves to do? The challenge is exactly the same as the paperclip one. What's currently out there? What's the stuff that's completely out of the box? What is going to make them generate the business? Whether it's, if you saw, they were giving away 50 gigabytes of data for 50 dirhams for the 50th anniversary, which I thought was again, you're tagging yourself to a pretty significant event. And what an achievement, 50 years for the UAE as well. That's just, I was proud to be in the country while it was happening. But with that, as I was saying, many other companies who are challenged with the same things, the Amazons, the Amazons of this world, the Noons of this world, some of the energy companies of this world. How do we differentiate ourselves in the market? How do we change the way we conduct business and apply some of the various digital transformation elements? You start moving down that list. Amazing active learning and learning strategies. This is a skill that you need to develop, as in how would you take a brand new technology, understand it, apply it, and then be able to help a company make use of it. So going back to what I said about big data, and going back to what I said about sort of buzzwords for AI and machine learning. They're buzzwords. They don't mean anything. They don't. In reality, you still have to apply them in some way. But these learning strategies are key now to companies, how they can keep up. Because if you're like anyone who's in technology, just keeping up is a real challenge of what's going on, what latest API has been updated, what are the Log4j vulnerability that got exposed. What do we need to cure that? There's an internal Google discussion going on about exactly that same topic around how to mitigate that particular massive challenge. Who else had some issues with that? Because if you've deployed something, the Mars rover is running Log4j. So they're saying, is that a vulnerability that I could take and exploit? Imagine the Perseverance copter was running Log4j. So it's like someone could remotely administer the copter and do some fun stuff with it. But anyway, interesting. And then the rest of the list, you can see complex problem solving, critical thinking. This isn't Java. This isn't C++. This isn't how to code or this is about how you're thinking and how you're operating. And I guarantee you, these are the kind of things that interviewers will be looking at, not looking at your certifications or your academic record, which they will, but I'm just saying that they want to know how you think. Are you someone that can, if we employ, you'll be able to take advantage of, I had the same problem, by the way. I didn't know where the door was. It was like, I actually went to the other side, which was interesting. Again, problem solving, which I failed on miserably on the door. So create, huh? Yeah, I know, but yeah, because I thought you can't get in through there. And why would you walk in on a whole thing that was going on? Anyway, separate thing. Creativity, leadership, technology use. Look, the first time we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels down and we start talking about tech. So I really want you to think about how you can develop those skills within yourself, whether it's running a little exercise like the paperclip thing, or if it's grabbing a self-help book on lateral thinking, or there's many different Udemy courses or stuff available online to really start expanding your skills and your mind. I got to press on. The other thing as well I like looking at is on LinkedIn. They tell you what are the people searching for from a soft skills and a hard skills perspective. And you can see there, I mean, that's probably more of a buzzword again, blockchain number 1, cloud computing, analytical reasoning, etc. That list. Nothing too unconventional there. The soft skills, you can see creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and EI. I don't know how that moved on. Anyway, it's good actually because I was ready to move on anyway. I should the latency here is going to help me. So that was that list, and then if you look a little bit more into what new graduates and maybe folks like some people in the audience would be interested in, it isn't necessarily about being paid the most amount of money, and I would agree with that. Like if you were paid a lot of money to do something you hate, you'd probably get bored after 3-4 years and decide to do something else. It's now no longer just about the money. I think previously you could jump back 10 years and it would be about that, but now it's about doing something meaningful, which is probably the reason why I'm still at Google, because I admire not just what the brand is, but what it does in its, philanthropic capacity. If I look at what search is doing, if I look at what Maps is doing on the consumer side, it's like, this is stuff that you want to associate yourself to big time. Even saying that, there's other brands I think as well which have seriously meaningful activities and work. So this list, I think you even need to look at yourself to see how do you prioritize, sense of accomplishment, challenging work, high level of responsibility. We almost need to kind of uncode and recode what we think is a great job. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is nice, but trust me, it's not going to, this is, as they say, cliche, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, which kind of pains me to say a little bit. Yeah, cliche, more cliche in terms of being, but at the moment it's not so stable. At the moment, you can see we're going, if you notice the trend, we get to the end of the year and there's a lot of people dumping BTC, and you'll find in January, again, don't take my advice on this, then you normally see a bit of an uptick like we did last year. And then again, the promise of it getting to 100K, another fallacy as well. You can see that I'm like dabbling a little bit, but not too much. Right, let's move on because there's a few more things to talk about. Yeah, this one's interesting. This is the reason why data has become important for companies, because the amount of data that's being produced. And this is from Mary Meeker. Anybody looked at Mary Meeker's report? I think she didn't do one this year, but she does this analysis of the industry, of how things are and where they're going. So she does this analysis. Have a look at Mary Meeker's 2020 and 2019 and 2018. She has this forward-thinking look as to where the technology market, where the device market, where the social media market is going. And 9 times out of 10, she's on the right path. This was one of the slides from her deck saying the amount, and just look into 2025, we're looking at a significant increase of the amount of data that's being produced by companies and individuals. Now, if you're smart, this is an industry, or this is an area, if you specialize in, you can command a salary and you have a job at least for the next 5 to 7 years, maybe, I think, until a computer decides to, or no, a containers cluster, a Kubernetes cluster takes over that job that you were doing. So data for me is a problem that a lot of companies will have. there's some other data points there that, like, as a data-driven company, Google, we are, I'd say a lot of the decisions are based on the data, and we have the tooling, like the BQ, massive sort of BQ tables, to be able to make some of those decisions on recommendations, or the tech to be able to, move maps into a particular direction, and so forth. So data is important, and this is the evidence. And picking a career in this area, and go back to the World Economic Forum list, go back to that LinkedIn list. Data science is important. So if you are in technology, if you are a coder, if you're not working on the data side of things, or you think, it's a turn off for me because I can't really get into IPython notebooks, or I don't really want to get into that side of it, you're missing a whole trick here in terms of making yourself really employable. And we're talking not just about local companies, private companies. If you're interested in even going into energy or into some of the government's jobs, huge vacancies in that space at the moment. G42 in Abu Dhabi, AI, center, they're hiring like crazy as well. So it's worth looking at. Pressing on, I'm going to move a little bit ahead now. So the crux of what I wanted to talk about, because some of it is about positioning that notion. I think that point about learning, active learning, and knowing how to tap into this sort of establishing this culture of innovation and learning, because this is what companies are really struggling with at the moment, by the way. Like, they've got people doing activities, but they're kind of quite mundane activities. And they want to switch those people from, as we saw, from doing data entry or basic like analytical work to doing more complex tasks. And part of it is getting people to think a bit more creatively and get innovation embedded into the culture of the organization. And that's a hard thing to do. You can't just like swallow a tablet and it happens. Also, you can't enforce it. It's something that happens organically inside companies. It's a part of their DNA. It's a part of their culture. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to try to highlight the key things, the 5 key things that we'll go over, which will help to really try to establish that grounding. So I did this talk at Expo just a couple of days back at the beginning of the week at a forum. And again, it was one of those things where in the audience, there were a lot of people from academia, from leadership, from company leadership, and down to developers as well. And the usefulness of this is that it kind of just opens your eyes up to, if you're even in a startup, the kind of things that you need to think about. So let's move on to see if we can get through the top 5 as quickly as we can. And then we can maybe open up for some questions, because I'm eager to hear from the audience as well. The first thing to highlight is that culture eats everything in your company. Just think about that for a moment. Not even just a company, in your academic institution, if you're still in academia, or if you're in the government space. What do I mean by that? It means that a lot of the things that we define in terms of process in a company, which is how we operate, tends to get overridden by the culture. So if a manager is enforcing a particular way of working, if he's micromanaging me, that just completely overpowers everything else. So the culture pretty much eats everything. And this is the important part of fostering that, sort of establishing the culture, is that you get your leaders and you get the individuals in the company to really embrace some of the core principles that you want to define. And we'll talk a little bit about how you define those principles in a little bit. But if you get this wrong, you very quickly get the wrong culture, and you get what I would define as a very competitive culture, between people. I want to get promoted. Forget this guy. I'm going to help myself and not help the other person, which is or you'll find people planning their strategies of how they're going to get you out of the company, which is not unheard of. It's like, this is like human nature, and we have to break that. And as I said to you, the sort of culture is like the heart and the soul of a company, and getting people to think slightly differently about what that looks like. There's a reference here to a book from Laszlo Bock. So he used to be the head of people operations at Google. He wrote a book which has a really nice narrative around how to set up that culture of learning, that culture of helping and supporting versus competition and sort of being number one in your division or group. So that's the first thing. The next thing is just a little bit more, and this is, you may have read this or heard this before, but it's also about that culture being able to bring your entire self. If I think back to my time at IBM, you probably got half of me in the office. The other half was somewhere else in the matrix, maybe, I don't know. But this idea of bringing your entire self, and I struggled with this when I first joined Google, because it was like, what do you mean I have to be one person? Because I was two people. I was almost like Bruce Wayne. Like by day I'm like working, and by night I'm a family guy doing family stuff, not crime fighting or anything, which is another thing which we can talk about. But imagine crime fighting in Dubai, but unnecessary, like Batman's redundant. So this idea of bringing your entire self is interesting, because then you don't have to have that two persona struggle. It's tiring. I'm like this at work and I'm like this at home. I'm glad to say that I can probably take a lot of myself, how I am at home, into the office and into my work colleagues. They know about my struggles. They know about, not obviously not everything, because you don't want to disclose everything, but it's about being a person and not necessarily just being about the work that you do. And I think that's the important part that you're trying to bring to this. Absolutely, yeah. And I think the EQ part of it is about understanding the other people around you and knowing that they might have an issue or might have a struggle. I think in these times it's even more so a challenge, because people are struggling with having to test all the time, the pressures of virtual meeting fatigue, the pressures of, the barriers between family and work are like so blurred, because my desk is right next to the dining table, and it's hard to context switch between the two. So we have to have way more empathy as well on the emotional intelligence side. There's also this idea of psychological safety, so that I won't be judged by somebody if I tell them something quite personal about myself. And I find Google, it is a safe space. And there's probably quite a few there's other companies that have that similar sort of culture as well, that they want you to share. I think Snapchat's a good example of a company with that kind of culture, along with, and you can read about them. They kind of, Glassdoor is a great way of seeing into a company, because you have ex people who've left there and talk about their experiences of that particular company, along with other things: dependability, structure, clarity, meaning, and impact. But that psychological safety, I've been in a job where I've not wanted to share everything with my manager or my manager's manager, because I feel it's going to be detrimental to my career path. And that shouldn't be the case. And again, it goes back to what I was saying about defining the culture of a company and defining what works for you, and defining and understanding whether that's a company you want to join and work for. Because if that's part of the culture, then maybe that's not a company I want to join, even if they're going to give me a 6-figure, 7-figure salary. Maybe, do I want to, that's the trade-off that most people are making. Pressing on. The other part I was going to talk about, and I'm skipping over one thing, which just talks about the DNA of the culture in a company, how to define it and get what the elements. I like to refer to them as the elements of what you want to define. But the other part I find, which is the heart of the company, or at least the lungs of the company, is the way people collaborate, because this is the essence of the culture within the org. Now, if I turn the clock back and talk about some of my experiences in my previous companies, it was highly competitive, meaning that I produce work, a plan, a document, a resource, and I burn the midnight oil. I work on that day and night, and I share it when it's ready to be shared. And if it's incomplete, people are going to judge me and say, "Ah, this is missing. There's a typo. There's an error here." Or if I'm writing a piece of code, why did you use this function? Hey, this is like 20 lines. It could be 2 lines. There's so many examples there of how people will look at your work and judge you in some way. The reality is that the tooling plays a massive part in that culture. And what I mean by that is, if it's a very stop-start culture, that's when it becomes difficult. The idea, so again, take this any way you want to, but the idea of sharing an attachment is just something that's completely alien to me at Google. And I know, being a GDG group, a lot of people here are probably using Google Docs, slide sheets and everything. But that has a massive bearing on the culture within the company because of the way we collaborate. So I'm more likely to share something which is incomplete with my colleagues to say, hey, I need some help with this. Here's a slide deck. I've got a meeting tomorrow. Can you help me? Versus, I need to do this myself. I need to finish this by 12 midnight. I'm the only person working on this. I'll share it when it's ready and get comments from people. And that's a very classic, again, this very competitive workplace versus, hang on a minute, there's like an architect, there's a partner manager, there's a resource in another country who could help me while I'm sleeping. They're still online. They can help. They can add their content in. So definitely something to think about when you're looking again at the way companies, the tooling they use, and even some of the academic institutions, the tooling they use as well, because it plays a massive part in the culture. Right. Yeah, so this is highlighting this a little bit more in the sense that if you're familiar with it, it's funny, some people are not familiar with the idea of a document being edited by multiple people at the same time. It's like, this is like groundbreaking, and it's been around for, Google Docs has been around for so many years. But this notion of creating a doc and sending it as an attachment to people, for me, is just like, this is old world, big time old world. If I can send somebody a live document and get their input on it, things will move faster. And if you think about the pace at which Google moves, if we didn't have that tooling, you would not see Google Maps moving the way as it does, how quickly it moves into adapting and the release updates that we have to all of our products, including Android and Nest and everything else. So this is the part I like to think is that differentiates us. And if your company's still kind of using this stop-start document world, then I encourage you to look at some of this tech, because it's a real game changer in terms of the pace at which you need to move today. So let's press on. That's still number one. How much do we have, by the way? What time do we need to stop? Give me a hard stop. 10 minutes is good. We can power through this. So number one was talking a little bit about that culture. Number two talks about the mission and the mantra. So we define exactly, and this could be at the project level, at the product level, at the company level. So this is Google's mission in terms of being able to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Timeless. Sundar says, this is our timeless mission that we will have for the next, whatever, N number of years. And he's, by the way, this is one of the nicest guys, nicest like executives that you could work for in your entire life. The guy is wholesome. He is like, we aspire to have his level of patience, given like he's being the head of Alphabet, and a very humble and thoughtful guy. But he refers to this as our timeless mission. If you look across any of the products, this is our aspiration. You look at YouTube, it's a very similar aspiration from a video perspective, being able to find and curate and being able to recommend the right content for individuals is, again, timeless. But search for me is, again, the thing that made Google what it is today, and it still is the most important thing to our to our company, and getting it right is again super useful. So the mission is really important, and I wanted to just look to see. Actually, we moved away from "Don't be evil," which may sound weird because it isn't really about being evil. It's actually about doing the right thing. So if you look at our founders' letter, you can see some adjustments there that they made. And "Don't be evil" is in there, but it's kind of it's a bit negative in my opinion. Like, rather than saying, okay, let's do the right thing for the customer, do the right thing for our partners, or do the right thing for individuals who are using, consumers or companies who are using our product. At this point, I want to open up to the audience because I want to quiz you on what you think. I'm going to give you a company mission, and you have to tell me the name of the company based on this. So let me read it out. So, bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. If you have a body, you are an athlete. Which company is this the mission for? Yeah. That one will. Yeah, the folks on the live stream, sorry, it's going to be difficult for you to participate, but please feel free to guess in the chat as well. It is Nike, and their actual mantra is, let's see if it comes up. Yeah, authentic athletic performance. Next one. I just want you to kind of understand, like, the mission plays a massive part in the way the company is perceived. And I kind of want you to think a little bit about this. Okay, to be one of the world's leading producers and providers of entertainment and information, using its portfolio of brands to differentiate its content, services, and consumer products. That could be any company. It's a hard one. Maybe they've updated it since then, but maybe the keywords there are entertainment, and boom, we got it. It is Walt Disney Company. I should change this to Disney Plus. Maybe they'll have a more specific, like, streaming or whatever it might be. It is Walt Disney Company, because if you think about Walt Disney, it's about the parks. It's about their the entertainment and content divisions. It's about so many things. But again, a fascinating company. Let's try one more. This one's like easy. See, the Earth's most customer-centric. Like, the first three words, if that doesn't say Amazon, then I don't know what does. Where customers can find and discover anything they want to buy online, endeavors to offer its customers the lowest prices possible. I mean, I don't know. You probably got boxes waiting for you, like I do at home from Amazon, because it is like, they are very customer-centric, and this idea of same day, same hour. We're probably going to get to that, as in next 3-hour delivery or something in the next few weeks. Even their acquisition of Souk, which I thought was a great move. A lot of people didn't see that. Was a great way for them to expand that brand into the Gulf, particularly into the UAE. They get knocked for some of their practices for the people who work in their warehouses and everything, but still, you can't take anything away from his vision, Jeff's vision, and his real idea of taking a company and starting off by selling books and now pretty much selling everything at such a competitive rate. It's crazy. Customer is the most important person in the room. Allegedly, that's plastered everywhere around Amazon's HQ, because you have to be, if you're not customer centric, then there's the door. Last one, I think. Last one. To inspire moments of optimism and happiness, to create value and make a difference. Nope. This is a hard one. Nope. Nope. What if it was a beverage of some kind? It's amazing. It's like it's brown sugary water, and they have an aspiration of like optimism and the one that gives it away is actually the happiness, because they sell happiness. If you look at their adverts, everybody who's drinking the Coke is having a great time, and they want you to feel like you're having a great time just by watching the advert. And they go for the emotional sell. They're not just selling you a drink, they're selling you like this vision of what your life could be, which is, again, their marketing executives are on another planet when it comes to marketing. Like, as I said, brown water. Like, if I said to you, here's brown water, do you want to drink it? You'd be like, I don't want to drink brown water. Do you want happiness? Yes, I want happiness. Give me that drink. It's amazing just what they can do. Okay, the point of what I'm trying to get to here is this idea of this mission and mantra that these companies have. And that plays a massive part in their culture, and it plays a massive part in the way the companies then are sort of portraying themselves, which leads to a lovely quote by one of my favorite public speakers. He's got multiple TED Talks. Simon Sinek. If you haven't watched anything from this guy, he talks about the golden circle, the why versus the what and the how, which is amazing. But Simon talks about this idea of customers will never love a company until the employees love it first. So if you have customers, if you have employees who hate their company, there's no way customers are going to aspire to be like that company in any way, shape, or form. So it really speaks, again, as I said, to the heart of the culture that's being defined and whether people can aspire and relate to that particular organization or company. Let's press on. So yeah, number 3, I've talked a little bit about this already, and this isn't anything new. This is, I guess, Google's view on, and particularly Google Search's view on customer centricity. This notion that even if you can't spell, that's not your problem, it's our problem. If you don't know how to search, that's our problem, not your problem. All the way down to, if the internet's slow, I'm on a 2G phone in the middle of Africa. That's not your problem, that's our problem. And that's looking at the problem from so many different angles, going back to what I said before about that initial exercise we did. We're trying to look at things from so many different angles that we decode an issue or a problem right down to its root and understand how our product's going to be accessible to the masses, versus just making something and not really taking any of the feedback or any of the inputs from the people who are actually using it on the ground level. So we look at the entire problem, and this is where I honestly believe, like, I'm trying to think of, Disney's probably another good company because they have this idea of Imagineers. Who's looked into Disney before? And Imagineers, they have people who are just coming up with concepts of what maybe the next Disney film, Pixar film is going to be. And they're entrusted with coming up with an exhaustive list of ideas, going back to our exercise at the start. With that 30, 40 list of ideas for the paperclip, you're very quickly going to understand what's going to work, what isn't going to work, and you can laser in exactly on solving a problem, like more efficiently, and actually understanding the breadth of what you're dealing with, versus this is the answer, this is the solution, and there's nothing else, which I think is a very, a blinkered, restricted way of looking at things. So we look at a lot of things, even the language stuff. If you've looked on the Pixel 6, the transliterate option now, actually even on Google Meet, I think it's available, where you can have transcription at the bottom, and even the translation elements as well. It's there as well. I can see Nabil getting up, which means we need to move on. Okay, number 4. So we've got a couple left to do. We can skip some of this stuff because it's not that interesting. Right, 10% versus 10x. Who's heard about 10x? This is the design thinking principle. It's not, Google doesn't own the copyright to this. But the concept, the thing here, and I think even developers and coders in the room can probably support me on this. Making something 10% better probably is the same amount of effort to make something 10 times better based on the way that you're thinking about things. So why not make it 10 times better versus making it 10% better? And this is effectively the kind of principle Google has with most of the products that we have out there, that we're solving a massive problem. And in fact, our old ex-CEO, Larry Page, used to say it's like a toothbrush test. Who's heard of the toothbrush test? So you're going for something that at a minimum people are using twice a day, at a minimum, twice a day, that has billions of users. I'm hoping like everybody in the world brushes their teeth. But that scale of an issue, that scale of a problem that you're solving for using some radical solution, which is, again, either time-saving, sort of efficient in some way, using some breakthrough tech. So the nexus of all those three areas is like a 10x idea. And in fact, Google X, the division that we have, is literally just focused on these 10x problems that we're trying to solve for. So this is sort of, as I said, at the heart of when you do sort of design thinking activities, but something I think as coders that you should think about. The effort that you're spending on refactoring a whole chunk of code, you could spend on maybe making, a whole list of features that would make life a little bit easier for end users, and the effort there might be a little less. There's also this concept of moonshots, and I think this keeps us on our toes inside our company. And we're running so many different workshops outside our company to help people to come up with their moonshot. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything sophisticated. It could just be about acquiring the next billion users or the next 1,000 users or whatever it might be. But this notion of having your vision set somewhat ambitiously is something I think a lot of companies tend not to have, and they need to have this, particularly the way that technology is moving and so forth. One of the examples, and I'll sort of pause there, is around, I'm skipping ahead a little bit because I wanted to talk a little bit about sustainability and everything, but we don't have the time. But this idea of rewarding experimentation is something that's also missing, in my opinion, in most companies. It's like you try and experiment with anything and you're likely to either sort of get blasted by a manager or maybe even lose your job. But in Google's philosophy is really about giving people the opportunity to experiment with things. For example, the great example I love to give is if you look at if you look at this quote from Elon Musk, he talks about the early days of aviation and that there was a great deal of experimentation and a high death rate. So before we could actually fly airplanes, loads of people trying. The Wright brothers, obviously, are the ones who got it right, but a lot of experimentation in that area, and it took a lot of effort to be able to get there. In a similar vein, we have this chap called Steve, who, let's see, chap called Steve. So this is a blind guy called Steve, who was one of the first testers for the self-driving car units. This is before it was actually a car with all the inbuilt sensors and the LiDAR. It actually were, all of the components had to be attached to a regular car because this is us experimenting. So this guy had like a 30-minute commute daily, which he had to rely on other people to take him to where he needed to go. And the self-driving car is a significant way for him to be able to conduct his life and perform his sort of day-to-day tasks without necessarily having to depend on anyone. Now you look, and going back to what I said about experimentation, if you look at the tech, and this is what really excites me. If you look at a car and you look at the kind of capability that's required for you to firstly understand the road and understand the various objects around it, to represent those objects and to understand where they are in proximity to you, as well as understanding hold on, this is running really slow. I should click and then carry on talking. And then understand how to navigate your way through these obstacles, through a potential road hazard up ahead, along with, and this is the part which excites me, the mathematics of probability of each of those objects, of whether they will go straight, whether they will go left or right, being able to see around corners, and also be able to map the trajectory and the probability of some of those vehicles coming into our path. If you get a chance, please do look at how some of this tech works, because LiDAR tech and some of the sensing capabilities of some of the, and Google isn't on its own. There are actually quite a few companies out there now that have got the technology to be able to do this. I should actually reference a little bit more. Almost done. Sure. Oh yeah, sure. Navigating the path, as I mentioned, through this, and then I've got a live view of what that looks like. Let's have a look. Yeah, so that path that then needs to be drawn, and then also looking at that vehicle and how it needs to navigate through in a live scenario, along with, so that was sort of version 1. Version 2 then had to take into account pedestrians. So, and understand the difference between a vehicle and a pedestrian. And here you can see the LiDAR tech being able to distinguish between people and objects and cars. And again, this kind of tech, this kind of work, and imagine the coding that's required to do this is significant. And this is all done on system on chip, as well as extended, you know, by using sort of 4G, 5G to keep the system updated in real time as well. It's fascinating for me just how self-driving tech works. And oh, we got quite a few questions. Cool. Let me just see. I think that's it. I think that's me done. Yeah, that's me done, because I wasn't going to go into the student programs. We can pause on that. Right. Questions.
Beginner with no experience, but working every single day to grow those skills and upgrade their capabilities.
Okay, so Michael's asking, what advice can you give to recommend for a beginner with no experience but working every single day to grow skills? So self-learning. I guess this is one of the taglines of what the pandemic has given people, this notion of being a little bit alone, which is one of the, I guess, the negative aspects of it. But folks who are learning themselves, I think the paths that we have currently, Google currently has a Skills Boost program, which you can, if you do a search for Google Skills Boost Cloud, there's a vast array of free services and training that we can give you to get you one of those certifications. I think getting a path to one of those certifications is probably a good place to start. If you're coming from academia and you have a degree in something but want to move into tech, that would probably be a good place to start. Along with, there's so many online resources on YouTube at the moment that are providing things for free as well. There's folks who are out there who are providing training, and depending on what you want to specialize in. But my recommendation, Michael, is for you to look at a particular area, as we mentioned at the start, whether it's data, whether it's about operations, whether it's about sort of on the collaboration side or on the transformation side. Specializing in some of those areas would be, key. Nobody really wants a jack of all trades these days. They want people to be really specialized in a particular area or discipline. What was the other questions? Okay. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, good. Abdul Majid, thanks for the question. How do you know about a company's culture before sort of joining them? I guess Glassdoor is that window, because you get people, mostly is negative. People leaving a company or have left, and they leave like a trail behind them. But you can go on. I would actually reach out to people on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, have you got 5 minutes?" I get people requesting this. Have you got 5 minutes? I'm going for this role. Can you tell me more about your company's culture? I've had people come up with that. So we don't do enough of this, by the way. This outreach, it doesn't happen enough. People from industry or people from organizations coming and talking to, doing keynotes like this to uncover a little bit more about the culture. So I'd be bold. I'm kind of a little bit unashamed like that. I'll reach out to people. If I don't get anything, I'll try someone else. Maybe one out of the 5 people I reach out to are going to come back and say, "Hey, I can give you a few moments of my time." But that's probably your best way to, to understand that company's culture a little bit more, is to really, or go to the headquarters and try and find someone from human resourcing to sit down with you. If they're not going to sit down with you, there's a problem with that company. You know that there's going to be an issue. Yeah, you kind of know, because it should be an open door. You should be able to, obviously now it's a little bit more difficult with COVID, but reaching out to people and getting them to talk to you. If you can't, then that's not the company for you, maybe. So any other questions, maybe from the audience? Yeah.
In the last workshop, there was the create and lifestyle process and your impact. How is this batch different from the certifications
Sorry, so start from the start again. Oh, skill badges. Okay, right. So skill badges are kind of like more of a checkpoint or a milestone to confirm that you can perform a particular task. In fact, this man is probably the man to talk about the difference between skill badges versus the entire set. But it's kind of just like a gateway, a checkpoint for you to know, okay, I can perform the basic, data pipeline tasks, and that's a check in the box. Or basic console, navigating the console. I think that's one of the skill badges. Yeah.
Nowadays, even people working on they won't be able to work on all the services within their company. Probably they're working on a particular project, a couple of services. Skill badges will give you the skills to work with services, and basically say, yeah, I've got those skills plus the certification. So we basically got reassurance for you that you're going to have the ground running when they give you the job.
Yeah. And again, you can post those and share those and say, I have these skill badges. So it doesn't necessarily mean all or nothing, the cert or nothing. There's some intermediary steps that you can show that you understand. And you have to do a good job of selling yourself. As I said, most people, I don't see people putting skill badges up. I don't see people putting up their experience. Even CVs that I've been reviewing, they're kind of flat and too wordy. They need to be concise. They need to be like, I need to look at it and think, hey, the point of a CV is for me to ask for more. It's like an appetizer in a meal. Oh man, the shrimps, the dynamite shrimps are amazing. Okay, I want to see more. That's what I see. It shouldn't have everything. It should be enough of a taster for someone to say, wow, I need the main course. Bring the main course to me. So yes, I think that's me done. Any other questions? Yes, please. What are you are you specializing in any modules that you've picked already? Oh, right. Yeah, so software, nobody buys software anymore. If I talk about my experience with working with some of the companies that I've worked with, like people are moving away from buying. It's more about either leasing or pay as you go. That's because that's now the consumption model. So, but developing software from either from a web stack perspective or from a mobile perspective, there's still quite a lot of opportunity there. If that's what you meant when you say software, maybe you have to elaborate more about what you mean by software development. And the other thing I'll throw back to you is what excites you. You have to plug into what excites you, because this career has to last you. And this is the thing that when I go back to when I was an undergrad, I was fortunate enough to do a year in an industry, in a company, before I completed my degree. And it gave me a real taster of what life would be like. What is it going to be like being in an office, working with other developers and a designer and other people? So in some regard, it's good to do an internship somewhere to get a feel for it. I've seen people who've wanted to do software design and software development go to a company and think, I hate it. This is not for me. I want to be out with, going out to see clients or talking to people and being more out of the office versus being in the office. So you kind of have to make a list of the things that excite you. For me, it was like, I'm just passionate about technology anyway, and software development and web development was my kind of forte. So it is about finding the thing that really excites you, because getting up in the morning and doing that thing for 20 years, you have to pick something that's going to get you through that 20 years versus lying in your bed thinking, I don't have the motivation to do anything, which is the case in some cases, like for some people in their job. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Nasser. We've got 3 minutes in the next session. We can't have enough of Nasser. Amazing. We'll see a lot of the expertise and tips and advice. And,
Sure.
I work for him probably on a weekly basis, and I learn a lot from him. So, connect to him on LinkedIn.
Yeah, connect. I did put it up, but we'll put it up later. We've got Sachin next, and this guy is a legend as well, by the way. I've been working with Sachin as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Nasser. We've got a couple of minutes for Sachin lined up next.
My pleasure. We know who we're going to get.